Thanks for joining us. This is part 4 in our 5-part series about perspectives on learning in the fire protection space. In this video, what I want to talk about is the cost and the different models for education. So traditionally, we have live in-person learning where the cost is per learner is essentially how big that room is, how many people are in that room paying for it, and then the cost for prep for that material, for the instructor, for the in-space, and the contact, the amount of hours and time that's consumed for that teaching environment. And in a nutshell, that's the cost. That's what it takes to deliver. The problem with it is that it's extremely expensive, and it's not necessarily the only way that we can learn anymore. When the internet came about, we got what we always wanted, which is an infinite amount of Teams meetings and Zoom calls. We can deliver education at greater scale in those environments, but they're still problematic. Anybody who's attended an online lecture or webinar where the instructor talks particularly slow, likes to tell maybe a lot of stories that aren't necessarily that pertinent, likes to tell and explain topics over and over again. Well, you've been there. You've been through the hour-long PowerPoints that only have 5 slides, all of which are just snippets of code text. We've all been in those environments. They're not particularly impactful. They're not particularly engaging. And you leave them without really materially being better off than you were just an hour and a half ago. We've all been through those environments. At cost, the online options the online cost per person can come down considerably because it's helping solve that skill problem. But what many people don't consider is when they're thinking about education and helping get our team off the ground, get knowledge, and then that caring stewardship for the industry, we think, well, in-person learning or seminars or courses or flying somebody somewhere costs this amount, which is exceptionally expensive, on the order of thousands of dollars per person. We have maybe local seminars or things that are offered annually or something like that. We can do a shorter course, a few days. That can still be in the hundreds to thousands of dollars, depending on what it is and where it is. We have online learning, which the cost can potentially come down. But if it's live, it might only be offered every quarter or semi-annually or annually. So there's challenges there too, but the cost is comparable, maybe still in the thousands of dollars, maybe hundreds of dollars, but it's in that. One of the avenues that we all tend to default to, and I have a lot of conversations about this, is, oh, well, we do that training internally. We cover that internally. We've got a pathway or a series, or we've got slide deck that'll cover layout, and we've got things on hazard classification. Well, that's great. One of the things from a cost perspective that we don't often consider is the cost to create and deliver that internal training. Well, if the one training director spends 80 hours doing that work, well, it's 80 hours of their time times their cost. So if they have a salary, I'm just going to say a number, $80,000, $100,000 a year, you divide that time per hour, and then you multiply it by the 80 hours, and you're still in the thousands of dollars. You could be spending $5,000 or $10,000 to train somebody for their first 2 weeks of training. And at that rate, you might as well go send them off to wherever, that even if the course costs thousands of dollars. Most of us don't have training directors in-house. Most of us don't have dedicated staff that's just for training. But let's say we're in a billable rate environment. We're a consultant, we're a contractor, we're somebody that we're pulling somebody from billable work and we're putting them on training. Well, the opportunity cost there is even more expensive. If that person is charging $100 an hour per client, and let's say they're spending 80% of their time in billable hours, or 60%, or whatever number you want to use. Maybe it's $200 an hour, whatever number you want to use, that's fine. Run the numbers on that. What does that person's billable rate, if we pull them off of billable work and we put them for 80 hours on somebody that's starting up, even if that's not 80 hours in 2 weeks, even if that's 80 hours over 4 weeks, how much is that actually costing? If they're doing $100 an hour of billable rate, let's just use that for round numbers, and they spend 80 hours, that's $8,000 that we are losing in opportunity cost to train up that one person for that contact time. That's assuming they have virtually no prep time, all contact time, and that contact time is being really impactful. I mean, $8,000 to $10,000 to $15,000 of impact It's extremely expensive at that point. And that's not to say that we shouldn't train people internally, but I think that a lot of us just go in and think, oh, well, if we train people internally, it's free. And it's not. In some ways, that can be some of the most expensive ways in which we train people. Now, to get past that, I absolutely 100% not advocating for, well, let's just not train people internally. The best possible ways that you can share knowledge, you can pay forward and pass on your information is to work and collaborate and learn from your peers in your learning environment. Those are the best possible people to learn from in most cases. But what we want to be doing with their time is spending it with the maximum possible engagement, impact, and output from what they know and what they can teach. We want them to not be spending time on strobe spacing, about hazard classifications. We don't want them teaching any of the basics. We want people training internally to be spending their time on what are the nuances of our organization? What are the nuances of the areas where we work? What are the nuances of our clients? What are the nuances of the way that we work? And how can we train on things that we care about and we customize and are specific on? So we talked earlier in the series, I think in the first video, about spending more time in the field, getting out to the field, seeing how the real world goes together, seeing real systems, real solutions, real outcomes, and talking with our senior level staff and walking through those job sites. That is the best possible way to learn. We want to get there. One, if you walk a job site, that takes no prep. You drive to the job site, you walk it together. You don't have to prepare for that as far as a learning opportunity. You ask questions in real time, you learn in real time. So it's no prep time and it's maximized engagement. But even if you're not going to the field, another great way to be spending your time that takes no prep is work examples, work actual projects that you've got going on. Do peer reviews, do stand and deliver. Say, this is a job that shipped last week. Let's all come in the conference room and talk about it and look at what are the good things about this design? What are the bad things about this design? What are the things that I'm checking for or I'm scrutinizing? Can we go and check this code path and make sure that's valid? Those are really good workshop collaborative environments where you're learning from your peers, where you don't have to go out in the field and you still aren't spending hours preparing for it. That's way better than a series of PowerPoint slides that have code snippets on them. It's just a way better learning environment and it's way less expensive. You're maximizing the learning and the engagement with your own team as opposed to be spending time bogged down in the basics. So it's not that any of these instructors are bad people. Live learning can be great and we can get a lot of things out of that. It's really expensive to produce. Online learning can be great. We can't skip ahead. We can't stop the class infinite amount of times. We can't go rewind. We're limited to that time and space, but the cost can be reasonable. And that's another option. Internal training, what we tend to think of as free, can be some of the most expensive ways to deliver. But ideally, in a better sense, or maybe not better, but in an ideal way, if we can all benefit from highly engaging, highly visual, meet only, move at the pace that you want to move, if we can all share the cost and deliver that same experience, it's high quality and engaging across the whole band of fire protection engineering. So things from egress to smoke control to suppression and alarm. If we can all invest in that and split the cost, well, then the cost per person comes down incredibly. And it's a fraction of all the other options. And don't call me a socialist, but essentially, if we're able to cost share the cost to develop that material, now keep in mind, we're talking 150 hours plus for every 1 hour of delivered material. That's what we want. We want the material to be vetted and curated and engaging and move at a good tick. We want the variety of the material. But if we want that outcome, the best possible way that we get there is that we all just split the cost. And that's, in a nutshell, why we've structured the university content that we do the way that we have, is because we're creating what it is that we want to learn, the course content we want to learn, the material that we want to learn. We want things to be interesting and engaging and just have a little fun while we're doing it, but make the experience more like playing a video game rather than watching a PowerPoint webinar. That's where we want to go. But in order to do that, it's incredibly expensive to create. But if we get it at scale, then the cost per person comes way down. So don't beat me up for being a socialist, but if we can get to the level that we're sharing that cost, well, now we could all be moving off that fundamental, that intro level learning in environments that meet us right where we're at. And now internally, we could be spending that time doing way more productive things. So in the last video, the next one, I want to talk about that. What internally can we be doing today, implement today, that gets us to way more impactful outcomes where we're learning from each other and collaborating in a really real and meaningful way. So I'll see you there.